It is now time for the only sports podcast, Power
Ooh.
Rankings Wild Card Edition. And again, when I made these title cards yesterday, it was because I felt like death. So the theme is death. Uh, and the first, and this is again just for playoff teams. So I had Casino list his playoff teams in order, but we're only starting at 9. So this is our top 9 teams in the playoffs going into the playoffs. And this is much different than our other ones for this season because this is an accumulation of the entire regular season going into the playoffs. This is not just what they did last week because obviously most of these teams were sitting people. So with that being said, our wild card number 9 pick for Casino to start out with is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Baker gonna bake. Baker gonna bake. Sorry, that's dumb. But I'm going Baker Mayfield because we talked about how he's done in the playoffs with the Browns, and it's crazy to say that he's done that with the Browns. Yeah, right. And man, they are kicking themselves in the fucking face right now. Pardon my French. But I like Baker, and I like what they're doing. Again, they're going to sit at 9 for me because they are too hot and cold. And I regardless of me having them winning, I still am going to put them at 9 respectively because they are hot and cold, but that doesn't have any judgment on, what I think they're going to end up doing in this game.
Yes. And the theme, for those who can't see behind it, is a graveyard that Baker is sitting in. And if we're ever buried in a graveyard, Casino, we would hope people would visit us, which brings us to my number 9. Somebody is visiting our grave. And I have in the grave the number, we just talked about him when we talked about the Vikings-Rams game. I have the Rams at number 9. Why I have the Rams at number 9, I love their offense, but I can't put them higher than 9 because they have the 26th ranked defense in the league.
Oh yeah, I have them at my 12. I have them at my 12.
Yeah, you have them second from the bottom, which honestly I can't argue with. They are only 9th on my list based on 3 things. That is their receiving group of Nakua and Kupp, which outside of the Eagles receiving duo and probably the Vikings receiving duo would probably be right there in that top 3 mix. And you can argue all day which of those 3 is the best one, but they're still in the conversation. I really like what Kyron Williams has done this season. 316 attempts, a yard shy of 1,300 yards, and then 14 rushing touchdowns on the season. So the Rams finally have a running game, which they never had with Jared Goff. And then Matthew Stafford, again, he's been phenomenal since he came to the Rams. They won a Super Bowl, and he's turned out to be a really good playoff quarterback. So in that first round matchup,
loved him.
We've always loved him, especially since he
loved it. You're right. I loved him. I've always loved him.
Yes, especially since he did that fake spike to beat my hated Cowboys.
Oh
that was the moment I fell in love.
That's one of the greatest plays in football history for me.
Oh, I love it. But yeah, so that's why, and that's
his own team didn't even know he was doing it.
that made it so great. But also that is one of those things where that's why everybody's picking the Rams to upset the Vikings because of Stafford. Oh, and then the third thing is Sean McVay. He's a great coach. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL, so you can never really count against him. Your number 8, Casino, is the Los Angeles Chargers.
Love it. We talked about it earlier. Justin Herbert just looks poised under the coaching of Harbaugh. So I like him a lot. I like this team. It is very old school football where they're going to beat you with their defense and then just wear you out. So Herbert doesn't have to be absolutely outstanding in the air. They're just getting a ground pound and just get the ball slowly moving, kill the clock, burn as much clock as possible. I like this team, and I said it all year. They're one of the teams that I could see being the best team that is not going to win a Super Bowl. And now I could just put the Packers there with them.
Yeah, I completely agree. And
I love them.
My number 8, very similar to yours, Casino, because it's the exact same one. And I also have the LA Chargers at, I hate calling them the LA Chargers. I still wish it was the San Diego
It's the
Chargers.
San Diego Chargers.
But I have them at number 8.
It's the St. Louis Rams.
Yeah. I wish all them didn't move. But yeah, I think the Chargers, again, this all comes down to pretty much what I said about the Rams, except switch out receiving core for defense. The Chargers defense finished the league as the 11th total defense in the league. They have Herbert at quarterback, who again doesn't have much playoff experience, but the one playoff game he did play in, he looked good at it. There wasn't, and again, when quarterbacks make their first playoff game, usually they're bad. So, and then again, I really like the coaching staff, and I think in the playoffs, coaching matters. That's why Bill Belichick, that's why Andy Reid have always been great, coaches in the playoffs. So
I've talked about it many times, but I still just fantasize of the idea of having Bill Belichick and Andy Reid being your two coaches. You have one of the best, if not the best, offensive coach of all time and the best defensive coach of all time. Oh,
yeah,
it would just be insane. Just be insane. And some of the most winningest coaches of all time. So.
Yeah. Next up, Casino, your number 7, the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, they're pretty high on my list, and it's mainly because I was really happy that they made the playoffs and Jaden Daniels is going to get Rookie of the Year. The reason why I have them so high, and yes, I know I have the Bucks beating them, but I got to give it to Jaden Daniels for the season he's had. Yes, there was a minor slump that he had mid to late season. However, what he's done against outstanding defenses, especially, again, we've saw what happened against your Eagles. We've talked about it. Yes, Jalen Hurt went out and all that, and the defense got tired, but it's still the number 1 defense in the league, and Jaden Daniels was able to go and win that game. And he's shown that he can do it when he needs to do it. So I like this team. I like what they have done this season. They can beat good teams, so I'm going to leave it at that. That's where they're at. But I don't have them beating the Bucks. I have the Bucks just coming in and surprising and annihilating them.
Yeah, which is weird that you rank the Commanders ahead of the Buccaneers.
I know. We're going off the entire season, and then I said the Bucks are the Bucks are a hot and cold team, and I just like Baker better in the playoffs than a rookie quarterback, Jaden Daniels, going into the season, and I trust the grittiness of the Bucks over the grittiness of the Commanders. That's my reasoning on it. But in a season, I like what the Commanders have done in a whole more than.
I do not have the Commanders on my list.
I know,
and I do not have them winning in the first round. I have my number 7 beating them in the first round, which is, of course, the best picture of an NFL quarterback to ever exist, and that is also Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 7.
And it's where the mic is also perfectly on his shirt. Like, it just looks great.
It's a great picture. For those listening,
I hope he has that framed in his house.
I might, if we might get it framed for the studio. That would actually be a really funny picture.
My wife just pulled in. Noise.
But yeah, I have number 7. I have the Buccaneers. I think especially the last month of the season and really all season, they've kind of been just on point. The wins the Bucks have are against the number 1 seed in the NFC, the number 2 seed in the NFC. They blew out the Chargers, an overtime, coin toss away from potentially beating the number 1 seed in the AFC. They come to play when they play the big boys, and they're the definition of the team that kind of plays to their competition. That's why you see them having rough games against a 4-win Saints team, and then turning it on against the Lions and the Eagles and the elite teams in this league. So I don't think that ends in the playoffs, and I think right now they're the team in the NFC playoffs. As an Eagles fan, I'm most terrified of, especially because Baker Mayfield has had our numbers since he's been with the Bucks and is just beaten us now 2 times in a row. I think maybe 3 times in a row. So next up, we have your number 6 pick, Casino, which is the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens played the Steelers in the first round. So yeah, the Steelers not in your top 9.
No, they are definitely not. They're actually, I believe, second to last. I think they're 13th. But I have the Ravens, and what I like about the Ravens, as you said, it their defense has started to figure it out, which
Top
is good.
10, finishing top 10 in the league, which
Top
is
10 in the league,
crazy because they
and
were
their
30th at one
yeah,
point.
their
Yeah.
secondary has gotten a lot better. And then the missing piece, I truly think, and I think we all think, is for Lamar Jackson in the playoffs is having a good running back, so he didn't have to do it all on his own. With Derrick Henry, I like this team, and I think this team can go far. I think this team can win a Super Bowl, especially now that that defense is looking better. So I like where they're at. I do have a few other teams obviously ahead of them, and we got to roll through these so I can get going. So that's what I'm going to say there.
Yeah. My number 5, let's go, or I'm sorry, no, my number 6 is the Minnesota Vikings. And again, yes, this is a combination of the entire season. I think right now the Bucks are a better team. I think the Vikings are better than the Chargers or Rams, even though I think if the Rams upset the Vikings on Monday night or on Monday Night Football, I don't think anybody would be shocked just with how good the Rams have been playing kind of and just how we saw that Vikings Lions game go. So I still need to see Sam Darnold in the playoffs, but I'm still putting them number 6 on the list over what they've done this entire season, which is be really great, have a really great defense, the resurgence of Sam Darnold, who at one point or at multiple points during the season was a legitimate MVP candidate. And if you said he was, nobody would like laugh you out of the building. So I think
Oh
that
yeah, his numbers are outstanding, and they ended outstanding. So
yeah, and except for that Lions Vikings game, I think he would still be in contention for like, hey, maybe Sam Darnold finishes 4th in the playoff rankings. Who knows? Or maybe he might even jump Saquon. Next up, Casino, your pick after the Ravens was the very team we just talked about, which was the Minnesota Vikings, and then your number 3 team was the Buffalo Bills. So you can talk about both of those.
is that 3? Is that how we did that?
Well,
Yeah,
I did 2 for yours, 4 and 3. So
got it.
the
Okay,
Vikings
yeah.
first because I was just
No,
talking
no,
about the
no, no.
Vikings,
You
and
have
then
my 5 and 4. This is 5 and 4.
yes.
Got it. Yeah. So Vikings, Sam Darnold looking great. Yes, they just lost to the Lions. I talked about all of that. Reasons why I still think they're going to be a good playoff team is because they figured out what the weakness is for Sam Darnold, and now they can move forward. He got the jitters out. That was a big time game, and I think just this team is too good for them to mess up 2 times in a row, especially against a team with the Rams that is a great team, but just not better than the Vikings. So I'm going to have the Vikings there. They're good, but I can't put them in front of these next 4 teams who are just better. Just
Yeah.
better. So with that being said, I have the Bills sitting 4. I love this team. I like that Cook has definitely stepped up and has made that running game and basically doing what Derrick Henry's doing for Lamar Jackson, where now Josh Allen doesn't have to run every single time. He's still running a lot, but he doesn't have to. Cook has had an outstanding season. This was a missing piece. We talked about it before the season started. I can remember it clear as day that when Cook went there, I'm like, this is going to help out this team tremendously. This is going to lessen the load for Josh Allen to make a playoff run that he could just never beat the Chiefs. I think this really helps out. And just like what I said for the Ravens, this might be the missing piece. It's finally getting a running back that can dual or that you can hand off and do split with carries with your quarterback. So I like it. I like this team, but we'll see how they fare.
Yeah.
Until they beat the Chiefs, you can't be above the Chiefs, but in the playoffs. So we'll see how they can do.
Now to go for my 5 and 4, I have the Baltimore Ravens. Mine was all fans edition, so that is a Baltimore Ravens fan, in case you can't tell for those watching on the video. With the Ravens, again, we've talked about it all season. The defense was the question mark. They had a unbelievable number 1 offense, especially rushing wise, obviously with the addition of Derrick Henry. Zay Flowers being out for the first game does scare me. Maybe not against the Steelers, because I think that'll be a run heavy game, and they've kind of already proven they can beat the Steelers Steelers and with the Steelers team falling the way they have the past month or two of the season. But I do think that if the Zay Flowers injury lingers into the second round, where they're probably going to have to most likely play the Bills or a team like that, then it's cause for concern. But this Ravens
most
defense,
definitely.
yeah, this Ravens defense finishing as a top 10 is really a testament to just coaching and the other Harbaugh brother that gets so much credit in LA. So, yeah, the Ravens.
And don't dare ask us. We get Jim and John mixed up constantly.
I know. I think I'm finally okay with it, but I mean, it took basically the entire regular season.
I just call him the Harbaugh. That's all.
Yeah. The Harbaugh brothers, both of them are good coaches. My number 4 pick, Casino, might be a shocker to you, but it is the Detroit Lions. And again, I think they are number 4 strictly because their defense is one of the worst defenses in the league, or in the playoff. Well, in the league, yes, but especially in the playoffs. So they're going to have to win in a shootout for every game, which again is something they can do. I'm not saying they can't do that. I'm just saying I think the teams ahead of them have better defenses, have as good, if not better offenses than them when you look at certain other teams that I have in front of them. So, yeah, I'm picking the Lions at 4, but I think they are still one of the best teams in the league and could potentially go to the Super Bowl as the number 1 NFC team. So, with Casino, who stepped away for a moment, I will just move to my number 3, which is also Casino's number 4, and that is the Buffalo Bills. Now, again, when we previewed the playoffs on our previous if you're listening to the full episode previous in this episode, if you're just watching this clip, go look at the clip where we talk about the Bills Broncos game. I think the Broncos will upset the Bills, but that is mostly just because I just think the Bills play to their competition, much like what we talked about with the Buccaneers, and kind of play down to when they, have a team they should just beat. So the Bills should annihilate the Broncos, but that hasn't been the story of the Bills all season. That being said,
that's such a great photo of the Bills guy.
I know. That being said, I do think the Bills have a great offense, probably obviously the second, no lower than the third best quarterback in the league in Josh Allen, if you're a Lamar Jackson guy or not, but he's going to win MVP. This is the season where everybody, including myself, thought they would take a step back, and they're still finished the season as the second seed in the AFC. Again, all they have to do is get past Kansas City, and they're in the Super Bowl. So
you pass Kansas City and you can win this whole thing.
Yeah. Next up, Casino, your number 3, and that is, we already did that. Your number 3 was the Buffalo Bills. Your number 2 seed is the Philadelphia Eagles. Or no, this is
my 3.
This is your 3, and then your number 2 is Kansas City.
Yeah.
So
yeah. My 3, I've got the Eagles. What can I say? The Eagles, they're just an outstanding team from top to bottom. They're almost in top 5 in every single category. If not already, they are top 5 in every category. Yeah. I'm sure you have the stats on that. They're outstanding. This team is going to be very tough to beat. Saquon having the year that he's had is just outstanding, and it makes so much pressure, takes so much pressure off of Jalen Hurts. And yes, I know he's coming back from his concussion. That worries me a little bit, but what this team has done, they sit there at 3 for me. And then, of course, then we have the evil empire sitting at 2 with the Chiefs. What can I say? You can't knock them. They're the best team in the NFC. Or my daughter went potty. The best team in the AFC. And yes, the Chiefs are the Chiefs.
Here. Well, yeah, hold on with the Chiefs because they're obviously on my list. And then my number 2 pick, I have the Eagles. There's an Eagles fan right there. Great costume again. So I have the Bills slightly behind the Eagles, and the Eagles 2 spots above the Lions for the simple reason of defense, right? The Eagles finished the season as the number 1 defense in the league. As Casino said, top 5 in almost every category when it comes to defense. They've only allowed 33 touchdowns all year. They allow the other team's offense to only have 278 yards, which is almost 50 yards less than the number 2 defense in terms of yards. So this is, I've said it before, I'll say it again. This is the best Eagles team of my football watching lifetime. I don't remember much about the Eagles teams in the 90s. I really started watching the NFL when I was 10. So really in my
that was mine too.
watching
10.
Yeah, my football watching lifetime, go from the year 2000, like 1999, 2000 to now.
2000 was for me, and that just so happened to be when Brady started.
Yeah, and for me, it was, I remember watching the draft when I picked my team, and it was the Eagles selecting Donovan McNabb, and I was like, this is my team. So that's kind of a short origin story because we both grew up in Vegas, so obviously there was no Vegas team in here.
Yeah, I have some family ties to Massachusetts via my dad's side, so that's both my parents are from towns, my mom from here, that have no ties to any teams. So some
Yeah.
people on my dad's side were from Massachusetts. So that's how I became a New England sports fan.
No, my family was from Chicago, but they weren't really a sports family.
Chicago.
So thank God I didn't choose to be a Bears fan.
Shush,
but yeah, when it comes to the Eagles, this is the best Eagles team I've seen, and that includes the 2 teams that went to the Super Bowl.
Perfect time.
Or no, that includes the 3 teams in my lifetime that have went to the Super Bowl. Obviously, they won it the one time. So, yeah, including all those Andy Reid teams, I legitimately think this is the best Eagles team. If they do not at least make it to the Super Bowl, I will probably be more devastated than I've ever been at an Eagles team not reaching the Super Bowl than this one. Our last picks, when there is a death casino, according to most religions, you either go to a heaven or a hell, and your team is ascending the steps to get into the pearly gates. You have the Lions as your number 1 team for the power rankings. Why do you think the Lions, after this entire regular season, are the best team in the league?
I'm going the Lions just because they're starting to get some of their defense players back, and on paper, this was a much better team than the Lions team last year. I will put your cape on. Sorry, it's the end of the show. We know it's breaking down. So the Lions their defense is finally getting some pieces back. The offense is legit, and I like Dan Campbell and his coaching style, and I like Ben Johnson and his coaching style. So this just all works, and I think they're the best team in the league, and they're going to be tough to beat. I got to deal with this. So go.
My number 1 pick. Obviously, they've been the best team all season. Nobody understands why. You look stat-wise, they're probably the worst version of themselves, but they're still going for the 3-peat. Only have 1 legit loss on their entire season because obviously they sat everybody for last week's game. When there is a heaven, there is also a hell. And the hell all of us non-Chiefs fans are living in right now is the end times because the Chiefs are most likely going back to the Super Bowl. Will they get there? I think so. My preseason pick was Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl, which is very much alive. And I think, honestly, that will be the Super Bowl matchup. I'm sticking to that. I also have the conspiracy theory on my side where the logo for the Super Bowl emblem is green and red. So, dude, it's on my side. Casino loves when I do the
it's just so scary. This is terrifying. The fact that like you have Taylor Swift like blinking with the Grim Reaper behind her, and it's just like the most menacing like ha 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 laugh ever.
Yeah, because that's is how we all feel.
They all have that ha 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 laugh. Even him. Like
much like death, the Kansas City Chiefs come for all of us. It's inevitable. They're going to be in the Super Bowl.